Hey everybody, I'm Nathaniel Dodds and welcome into this Premiere Pro video editing tutorial where we're going to take a look at 5 simple, easy to create video transitions here in Premiere Pro. They look a little bit like this. We're going to cover how to create all of those and even save bits and pieces of them as presets so you can quickly reassemble them for any video project now or down the road. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like what you see here so you can check it all out as we keep creating more of these videos. But for now, let's jump into Premiere Pro and check this thing out. Here we are in Premiere Pro, and the first effect we're going to do is a true blue zoom in effect. We're going to save this as a preset as well so you can use it very, very easily later on. I've got these 2 clips here, and we want to just create this effect where we're like zooming in on the girl and then appearing right here at this beach scene. The first thing we'll do is come over here to the new item button and create a new item. We're going to choose to create an adjustment layer. Create a new adjustment. There we go. Hit OK. And there's our adjustment layer in our little project bin. We're going to drag this out and we're going to place it here above the cut or, somewhere around the cut. We're going to trim and set this exactly as we want it to be in just a moment. I want to make sure over here that I'm targeting the V1 track. We can target as many tracks as we want, but in particular, we want to target the track where our videos are sitting right here, which is V1. And I'm going to hit the up arrow key. The up arrow key is going to move the playhead back to the last cut previous to where the playhead is on any targeted track. So it's going to take me right to the exact cut between our 01 and 02 video clips here. We're going to hold down the shift key and tap our left arrow key to push the playhead to the left 5 frames. And then I'm going to grab the edge of the adjustment layer and stretch it out to there. Great. Hold down shift, tap the right arrow key once, twice, and then drag the edge of the adjustment layer to kind of trim it there. So now we're going 5 frames on either side of our cut with that adjustment layer. Let's now come over here to our effects panel. We're going to search for an effect called transform, and there it is, video effects, distort, transform. We're going to drag this transform effect and drop it on the adjustment layer. There we go. Then we're going to come up here to our effect controls panel, select that. And down here you can see our transform effect that's opened up, right? That's the transform effect. That's what we're concerned with right now. I want to make sure my playhead is right at the split, right at the cut between these 2 clips, which it is. And I'm going to come over here to scale, which is right now at 100. I'm going to hit the little stopwatch to toggle the animation, which is also dropping that keyframe out there, as you can see. And I'm going to set scale to 200. There we go. Something like that looks great. Now we'll move the playhead back here so it's before this keyframe we just placed. And we're going to hit this reset parameters arrow. You can see it's going to reset the scale to 100, but also drop another keyframe here. We can drag this keyframe all the way over to the very beginning of the adjustment layer. I'm going to move my playhead to the right of that central keyframe, and I'm going to set the scale to 300. And we'll drag this keyframe all the way to the end of the adjustment layer. So right now the effect we have is we're zooming in on the girl, it switches, and the scene continues to zoom in. I'm going to zoom out here on my timeline so I can find my adjustment layer again. I'm going to zoom back in. I'm just using the plus minus keys to do that. And with this adjustment layer still selected, we want to kind of just use our mouse wheel and scroll to the bottom of this transform effect. Down here, we have this use compositions shutter angle is what it's saying there. Use composition shutter angle. We want to shut that off, and we want to set our own shutter angle. Anything between 180 degrees and 360 degrees is good. I'm going to set this to 360, and what that's going to do is just give us some blur here on our zooming in effect, but we're not at all finished. I want to take a break from the tutorial real quick and let you guys know that the best way to support this channel is to pick up a copy of one of my Photoshop courses. There's a link down in the bio there. You can check out my Photoshop course all about how to retouch images in Photoshop. I know this is Premiere Pro, but that's a great way to support the channel. If you like what you see and you want to see more of this stuff come out, consider supporting the channel. Let's jump back into it. Let's go ahead and grab the razor tool. It's this tool right here. Select that and just cut the first video clip at the beginning of the adjustment layer right there. So now we have our video clip underneath the beginning part of the adjustment layer, and we can select that like it's its own individual video clip. I'm going to come up here and just hit the little X icon to get rid of the transform effect. And we're going to search for an effect called lens distortion. Actually, I'm not going to search for it because there are a lot of lens distortion corrections. We can just come under video effects, distort, and there it is, lens distortion. Drag and drop that on this 01 video clip that we just cut. And let's just animate this from 0 lens distortion at the beginning of this clip to a bit of lens distortion as we move along. So the effect, or the parameter I should say, that I'm looking to change in this effect is the curvature. So I'm going to hit the little stopwatch icon to drop a keyframe. I do want this to be 0. So I'll just drag that keyframe back to the beginning of my video clip, and then I'll move out over here somewhere, and I'm going to set the curvature to, like, I don't know, let's try -50. It's going to be pretty extreme, but I think it's going to be what I want. And I'm just going to grab that keyframe and drag it to the end of the video clip. So now as this zoom in happens, actually I can just shut that adjustment layer off for a quick second by hitting the eyeball. We can see the effect here that's going to take place. You just kind of get this, the edges of the video zoom and bend as if we're, you know, shooting this with a very, very wide angle lens. So it's going to be a really cool effect that'll kind of work with our zoom, but we're not finished yet. Grab the razor tool, and we want to trim here to cut off this piece of the O2 video clip underneath the adjustment layer as well. I'm going to move over here. We'll select this video. And obviously part of this zooming in effects problem is that we're just zooming straight into the ocean, and this video is turning into a video that is scaled up 300%, which is going to be a little bit of a problem. So we'll just select this video clip, and we're going to search for an effect called replicate. And I'm going to drag this out and drop it on the O2 MOV file here. And we're going to replicate this to a count of 3. In fact, to make this easier, I'm going to shut off my adjustment layer here on top by hitting that eyeball layer. There we go. Let's just shut that off just so we can see what we're working with here. We just have 3 across, 3 up and down. That's what this replicate effect is doing for us. Great. And now we want to find an effect called mirror. All right, there it is. Video effects, distort, mirror. Drag that out. Oops, I don't want to drop it on the adjustment layer. That was a mistake. Let's undo that. Drag it out and drop it on the O2.mov. See, we're working with real life here. We're not going to edit that out. I'm going to select this mirror effect right here in the effect controls panel, and I'm going to copy and paste it 3 times. So Command or Control C to copy, Command or Control V to paste it, and then Command or Control V, Command or Control V. And what we have are 4 mirror effects. Now, this is something that's a little bit repetitive, so we're going to actually save this as a preset once we do it. That way, if we want to create this effect again, we just drag this preset out, drop it on the clip, and we're done. But here, just roll with me for a second. What we're going to do is open up our first mirror effect. We're going to change a couple things. Reflection angle, number 1, is going to remain at 0. Reflection center, we're going to change this to 1279 and by 540. So you can see that's creating this reflected effect over here, 1279 by 540. We're going to go to the second mirror here. And by the way, this is for 1080p footage. You may have to adjust this a little bit if you're working with larger footage, 2.5K, 4K, whatever. And for the second mirror, we're going to go 640 by 718, and we're going to set the reflection angle to 90 degrees. So you can see, there we go, we're flipping this video on the bottom. Let's collapse that mirror effect, open up the third mirror, and for this one we're going to go 640 by 540, and we're going to reflect this 180 degrees. So you can see now we're getting that crazy reflection over there. And for the fourth mirror, we're going to go 640 by, I believe it's 360, and then set the reflection angle to 270. And you can see now we have just flipped our video every which way, so we get these perfect reflections all around our video. At this point, I'll collapse that mirror, and I'll hold down my Command or Control key and select the replicate and the 4 mirrors, right-click, and choose to save this as a preset. And I just name this preset 3x3, just 3 by 3, hit OK. And if I come over here, I get rid of searching for mirror, go to my presets. There's my 3 by 3 effect. So if we need to do this again, we can just drag this preset out and drop it, and you'll see that you would get all of these effects, boom, and your video would instantaneously look like this, so you can perform something like this zoom effect with ease down the road. In fact, if you wanted to build out and save this entire effect as a preset, you would save it as 3 presets, actually. You would save your little lens distortion animation. We could right-click on that and choose to save it as a preset. And I would probably just call this zoom in transition 01, right? Because this would be for the first clip. So I'd hit OK for that. And then I would select my O2 clip. I would resave all of these effects just so they're organized in my presets panel here. Zoom in transition O2, so I know this goes on my O2 video clip. Let's just make sure we spell transition right. There we go. Hit OK. And last but not least, for the adjustment layer, I would select that transform, and I would right-click and choose Save Preset. And by the way, I've been choosing Type Scale because what that'll do is these keyframes and the animation that we've created, it will scale it no matter how wide or how tight this adjustment layer is. So if the adjustment layer carries on for 1 second, it'll animate perfectly for 1 second, or if it carries on for 30 seconds, it'll animate perfectly for that as well. So we could just say Zoom in, Transition, and this, we could either call it O3 or we could call this adjustment layer. So we just know that's the preset we apply to the adjustment layer. And if we look down here, we'll have there to zoom in transition 01, 2, and our zoom in transition for the adjustment layer. And now let's just pre-run this. Let's turn our adjustment layer back on by hitting the eyeball. I'm going to hit the letter I to set an in point, hit the letter O to set an out point. We'll go sequence, just render the in to out, and give this a second to preview, and then we'll check out what we've got. All right, I'll just back this up here. I'm going to use the hotkey Option X, that's Alt X on the PC, to get rid of in and out points. And let's play through this real quick. And you can see you just have a nice, smooth zoom in, switches over, and continues to zoom in just like that. Looks pretty stinking cool. So that's the first of our simple transitions. Let's just zoom out here, and let's move over and check out the second of these transitions. Now, the second effect is just going to be a simple lens distortion bump transition. So we'll transfer from this clip, or transition from this clip, boom, right to this this kind of moving aerial shot. And it's pretty simple. What we're going to do, we're going to hit the down arrow key here to move forward to the next split in the clip, which is going to be that exact cut between the number 1 clip and the number 2 clip here. And I'm going to hold down my shift key and bump backward 5 frames, and I'm going to split this. You can use the razor tool there. Hold down shift, tap the right arrow key once, twice, and cut that. So we're just moving 5 frames before and after that original split in our video. Now we'll go over to the effects panel here, and I will collapse my presets that we've been messing around with. I'll go to video effects, I'll go to distort, I'll go to lens distortion, and I'm going to drag a lens distortion out here onto the first clip, and I'll also drag a lens distortion out onto the second clip. We'll animate the second clip in a second. But the first clip, the way I'm going to animate this here is I only want to mess around with the curvature again. I'm going to move back closer to the beginning of the clip, and I'll toggle the animation on by hitting that stopwatch, and we're going to leave the curvature at 0, and then I'll move down the video. Whoop. If you bump too far down the video, it just zooms you all the way to the end of the next clip, so we don't want to do that. Let's go back to our number 1.mov, and you can see there's our keyframe. I'm going to set the curvature here to something extreme, like -100, and you'll see it's going to just, she's faceless, right? What we'll do here is we'll select both of these keyframes now, right-click, and we'll just choose to ease these out. And then I'll drag the first keyframe to the beginning of the clip, the second keyframe to the end of the clip. We can even select this lens distortion, right-click, save this as a preset. We'll call this lens distortion trans, and we'll say 01 because this is for the first clip. Again, type is just set to scale, because if you want this to not be 5 frames, maybe 10 or 15 frames, the animation will still work. We'll hit OK. We'll move over to clip number 2 here. And now for this one, we want to begin with our curvature at -100. So set the curvature to -100. You can see it just blows the doors off of our shot. We're going to toggle that animation on to drop a keyframe. You can see there's the keyframe. I like to work with the keyframes away from the edges of the clip and then move them to the edges afterward. And then all we need to do here is hit this reset parameter button to drop another keyframe, select both keyframes. Let's go right click and choose to ease these out. Move our keyframes to the edges of this clip. Right click on this lens distortion, and let's save this. Save preset, lens distortion. Let's say lens distortion trans 02. Hit OK, and I will just zoom out on my timeline here, and let's just let's go ahead and render some of this. So set an in and an out point as we did. Go sequence, render into out, and we'll see what this looks like here in just a second. All right, here we are. Alt X, Option X if you're on the Mac, and let's just preview this here. You can see we just get this very fast, very extreme kind of lens distortion effect that just pops us from one frame right to the next. And obviously you can play with the settings here, and you can tweak and adjust this exactly how you would want it to be, but it's a very fast, kind of cool little transition that you can add to your videos. No nonsense, gets right to the point. You save it as a preset, and you can quickly just make your cuts in your clip, boom, add the animation, and you're done. I want to butt in here real quick and remind you to follow me over on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @tutvid. There's all kinds of different design and visual stuff that I try to post over there, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and it's one of the best ways to reach out to me, too. Hit me up in those Instagram DMs if you got a question or whatever you want to hit me up about. Do it over there on Instagram, @tutvid. Let's get back into the tutorial. Okay, so the third transition we want to take a look at here is pretty cool as well. I've got these 2 video clips lined up, and what we want to do here is actually utilize a second track. So I'm going to take video clip number 2 here, I'm going to move it up, and I want it to overlap the first video clip by 20 frames. So I'm going to hit my down arrow key. It's going to take me to the exact cut in these clips. Hold down shift and tap the left arrow key once, take me back 5 frames, one more 10, one more 15, one more 20 frames, and then I'll just move that number 2 clip over. And right there, it's overlapping 20 frames. Now we'll go back to effects. We'll find that transform effect once more. So we'll go transform. There it is, distort, transform, and drag and drop it up on the number 2 clip, the clip on top. And we're going to animate a scale, but I want to move in 15 frames. So hold down shift and tap the right arrow key 3 times. We got to click out here on the timeline to do that. Hold down shift, 1, 2, 3. There we go. And with this transform effect, I'm going to use my toggle animation, hit that stopwatch. We're going to drop a keyframe 15 frames into this number2.mov video clip, just like that. You can see scaling is at 100. In fact, I'm going to select this animation timeline here, and I'm going to zoom in on it by selecting it and then hitting the plus button on my keyboard. And I'm going to just move back before that keyframe, and I'm going to set scaling to 0. There we go. And now I'm going to make sure that this first keyframe here is all the way at the beginning of the clip. But maybe even before that, I'll just select both of these keyframes, right-click, and we'll ease these guys. Let's ease them in, and then drag that first keyframe and bring it all the way back to the beginning of the clip. And if we play that, you can see we just have that nice kind of voomp, that video popping up. Looks super like 90s, not necessarily what we're going for here, but it's all part of a larger effect. We're going to uncheck Use Composition Shutter Angle. We're going to change our shutter angle to 360 degrees, and now what we're going to have is a blurred zooming effect. You can see that, pretty cool. I'm going to collapse this transform effect over here in my effect controls panel, and we're going to look for another effect here called turbulent displace. There it is, video effects distort, turbulent displace. I'll drag and drop that on the 2.mov clip. I'm going to change the displacement style to twist, and I'm going to move a little bit further down so I can get a better idea of what this turbulent displace is going to do. I really want to jack up the amount. Let's try like 350. Yeah, that's looking more like what I want. And I think we'll also set the complexity here. Let's double it. Let's set it to 2, and you're going to see it's really going to start destroying some stuff. As I scroll down, I just rolled over pinning. The default, I believe, is pin to all. I think I want to set this to pin to none. And you can see how this is really just creating this like crazy splattered all over effect, right? Isn't that kind of neat? It's using that zoom in transform to kind of spread out and create this effect that makes it look like our video is just like splotching and splattering all over the screen. But obviously, I want to get rid of the turbulent displace once the video is kind of zoomed all the way in. So I want to open up the transform effect, and you can see there's our finished scaling keyframe. I'm going to zoom in on that a little bit. I want to move my playhead to right where that is, so I'm going to hit this next keyframe button. So hit that, and then I can collapse my transform effect. Down here in turbulent displace, we're going to animate the amount parameter here. So right now it's at 350. We're going to choose to drop a keyframe right there so it's exactly lined up with the keyframe where all this animation stops. And let's move our playhead back to about right here, and we'll drop another keyframe. So we're just going to hit that Add Remove Keyframe button, and I'm going to drag this one all the way back to the start. Let's hit the Go to Next Keyframe button, and what we'll do is we'll change the amount here on the ending keyframe to 0. So basically, it will fade from a very extreme case of this splattery effect to by the time it finishes zooming in, you're just at a regular old video. So let's go ahead and try to render this and check it out here. I'm going to set an in and an out point. We'll go sequence, render in to out, give it a second, and we'll go Option X, Alt X on the PC to get rid of the in and out points. And let's check it out real quick. Voila. Pretty cool. So that's that effect. And if you want to save that, what you can do is just go ahead and select Transform, hold down Command or Control, select Turbulent Displace, right-click, choose to save the preset, and we can just call this, I don't know, Splatter Transition, if I can spell. There we go, Splatter Transition. Again, we're going to set the type to scale because it's really based on the first frame of the clip to which it's added. We'll hit OK, and now you have that transition saved as a preset. Pretty easy. So on to transition number 4. This is going to be sort of, I don't know how to describe it, like a barrel rotation transition or a panoramic style rotation transition. And this clip or this effect particularly works well if you're kind of like moving the camera up and down from one frame to the next, like maybe you're ducking down beneath some foliage or something and then coming up out of the ocean in the next shot or something like that. This effect works really well. Now this shot, the camera's actually traveling sideward. In theory, you could make this effect work side to side, but the lens distortion effect tends to want to bend the sides of your video footage more than the top and bottom, so it kind of is not nearly as convincing an effect. But here's what we do. Hit the downward arrow key to jump your playhead to the cut between the two clips, and then hold down Shift and tap the left arrow key twice to move back 10 frames. Let's zoom in a little bit here so we can see what we're doing. Grab the razor tool and snip the video clip there, and then hold down Shift, go right arrow key 1, 2, 1, 2, and snip the second clip there. Now what we can do is we'll actually go to our effects. Let's use one of our presets here. There it is, Lens Distortion Transition 01. So let's drag that out onto the first clip and then Transition 02 and drag it and drop it on the second clip. So we're kind of getting that effect just like that, all right? So this is just step number 1. What we now want to do is drag our adjustment layer that we created before out. This is not going to have all those same effects that we applied to it. It's just a blank adjustment layer, a new instance of this adjustment layer, if you will. And if your adjustment layer is a little bit longer, make sure you just trim it down. We want it to be exactly as long as the 20 frames here that make up these two little clips that we just cut together, right? And we'll select this adjustment layer. We're going to go to Effects, and I'm going to collapse my presets here. We want to find an effect called Offset. So there it is, Video Effects Distort Offset. Drag Offset, drop it on that adjustment layer. And let's hit the up arrow key to move to the very first frame of this adjustment layer. We'll select the timeline down here, hit the up arrow key. There we go. There's the adjustment layer. We're going to nudge inward 2 frames. So just hit the right arrow key, 1, 2. There we go, 2 frames in. I'm going to drop a keyframe and toggle the animation for the Shift Center 2 parameter. There we go. You can see there's our keyframe. And now we'll move 15 frames down the timeline. So hold down Shift and tap the right arrow key 1, 2, 3 times. Great. And because I want to make this look like it's moving up and down rather than left and right, I'm going to change the Y. If you want it to look like it's moving left to right, you would change the X parameter here. But I'm just going to multiply 540 by 3, and that's 1620 if my math is true. And there you go. You can see Premiere Pro automatically adds a keyframe. It doesn't look like we've changed anything because 1620 is going to kind of land us exactly where we want to be. But if I back it up, you can see we're getting this kind of like barrel rolling effect, which is kind of neat. The problem is, as you see here, you can really see the transition between the frames. So we probably want to add a blur to this as well. I'm going to select these 2 keyframes real quick, right-click, and just temporal interpolation and choose to ease these in to just work with the effect and smooth it out a little bit. But I'm going to come down here to the effect panel, hit the little X icon to get rid of offset in the search bar. I'm going to go to Video Effects. I'm going to go Blur and Sharpen, and I'm going to choose this guy right here, Directional Blur, and drag and drop it on my adjustment layer. I want to break away from the tutorial for a quick second and remind you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you can check out all of the Premiere Pro and video editing tutorials that I have. Let's jump back into it. What I'm going to do here is now move my playhead to the exact cut there between my 1 and 2 video clips here. So I'm going to hit the down arrow key. You can see it aligns that playhead perfectly. And then I'm going to nudge back down to the left here, maybe like, I don't know, just 2 frames, probably something like that. And right here, I'm going to change the blur length of my directional blur to probably like 75. And you can see here how the direction of 0 degrees is perfect. It blurs me up and down. If you're moving laterally side to side here, you would just change your blur direction to 90 degrees. So now that I like my blur length at 75, I'm going to hit the little stopwatch to toggle animation, drop me a keyframe right there. I'm going to nudge 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe like 5 frames. I just want this full blur to straddle the actual transition point. I'm going to hit the Add/Remove Keyframe button. That's going to add another keyframe. So between these 2 keyframes, we're going to be holding that 75 pixel blur length that we set before. Now all that you need to do is come back close to the beginning of the video clip. Maybe we'll align it with where the motion starts, maybe even move 1 frame in, and just hit this reset parameter arrow right there. Great. So we're going to take it back to 0, so there'll be no blur. So what will happen is the animation begins, and as it begins to move, it blurs and speeds up, and then of course it needs to slow down here at the end. So we'll move a little bit past that little keyframe and then hit the reset parameter button to bring us back to a 0 blur. Select all 4 of these keyframes, right click, let's ease all these bad boys in as well, just to give the whole effect just generally a little bit smoother of a look. And of course you can drag and move these keyframes around to get your timing just right if you're looking at it and something doesn't look right. Let's go ahead and just drop an in point by hitting the letter I, drop an out point by hitting the letter O. We'll go sequence, render in to out as we've done with every other transition up until this point. And let's check it out here in just a second. All right, and as we've done before, Option X, Alt X if you're on the PC. Let's check it out. So you can see there's the effect. Pretty cool. And now depending on the video clip you're doing, I have a lot of just like black between the night sky and the dark foreground here in the second clip. So maybe this wasn't the absolute best clip to choose, but if you're doing stuff where you have just edge to edge detail, it's such a cool effect because it just looks like the whole frame bends and almost like you're rolling around the world. It's a really, really cool effect. And again, if at this point you wanted to right click on the directional blur and the offset effect and save these as a preset, you could do that. Remember the effects on the 2 clips underneath, they're both those lens distortion presets that we already set. So we're actually piggybacking off of a transition we created earlier. So here we are with transition number 5, the final transition for this tutorial. And what we're going to do is perform this twisting transition from this video clip to this video clip. And you can see here just one quick thing about this. This video clip appears to be moving through the sky a little bit faster than this guy is. So we will probably want to speed this clip up a little bit. So I'll just right click on it and choose speed duration and maybe set the speed to like 175%, something like that. Hit OK, and if I need a little bit more time, just drag a little bit more of the clip out, as long as you have the video. And you can see now both the video clips, they're moving at about the similar, a much more similar speed at least than they were before. It's just going to give us a little bit more of a convincing look here with this transition we're about to do. Once more, I'm going to hit the down arrow key to move my playhead to the cut in the clip, zoom in a little bit, hold down shift, nudge back, use the razor tool. We're cutting 10 frames on either side of our original split. So we're just holding down shift and tapping the left arrow key twice and the right arrow key twice. And what I want to do is find the effect, one of the presets we created, this 3x3 effect, and drag and drop it on the first clip that we created. So you can see here we're now getting this like crazy, flipped building, but you can see how fast it is. We can create that same exact effect, but it took 2 seconds because we drag a preset out. And now what we're going to do is find an effect called twirl. So I'm going to search. There it is right there. Video effects, distort, twirl. Don't be distracted by this twirl in, twirl out stuff. We're just going to work with our own twirl. We could play with that, but we're going to go with our own twirl here. Drag and drop that on the first clip. There is our twirl. And with this twirl, we're going to animate the angle. So I'm going to move a little bit closer to the beginning of my clip. I'm going to drop a keyframe to start the animation here with angle. I'm going to move a little bit closer to the end of the clip, and I'm going to change the angle. Let's just go with, I don't know, 90 degrees, something like that. You can see it's giving us this like ripping twist to the middle of this giant video frame that we have. I'm going to select both of these keyframes. I'll right click here, and I'm going to choose to ease them in. And let's just play through this. You know what, I think that's twisting a little bit too much. What we'll do, we'll use our go to next keyframe button here to make sure we land exactly on our keyframe. Let's back this off, maybe set it to 50. Yeah, probably something like that will work for us. Now what we can do is just grab the first keyframe, drag it to the beginning of the clip, grab the second keyframe, drag it to the edge of the clip, and now we have this twisting effect that's happening over that just crazy 9 up version of this video. I know it looks crazy, but hang with me here. We're gonna sort this all out in just a second. We can also throw a lens distortion onto this just for good measure, because we've had some we've been prosperous with our lens distortions here. So video effects, distort, lens distortion, drag and drop it on the clip. And this one, let's do something very similar to our lens distortion transition, where we're going to animate the curvature, and I'm not going to push it to -100. I'll push it to like -70. We just really want to bend the edges of this crazy video clip. You can see, whoa, that's doing a lot for us. Let's right click and also ease this in, and then drag these keyframes to the very beginning and very end of this little video clip. Let's back this up here and just see what we've got happening. It almost looks like we're zooming in now because of that crazy lens distortion. And you know what? I think I need more twirl. I'm going to select this. I'm going to push the twirl back up. I should have just gone with my gut initially. I'm going to drag this keyframe back away from the edge, and I'm going to hit the go to next keyframe button. And let's set the angle here. Let's push it up. Maybe we won't go 90. Let's go 75 and just push it a little bit further. There we go. And we're going to drag that keyframe to the edge of the clip just like that. And now we have a twirl effect. It's just a bit more extreme, all right? I think I kind of like the way that looks. We could even, if you're still not entirely happy with the twist, and to you it might just look like, why are you playing with a stupid twist this much? Well, because I really want it to line up with the twist. We're going to be adding another twist to the second video clip here, and I really want it to line up. Maybe I'll increase the twirl radius to like 50 here, and you can see it's just going to change the way that the twirl is going to happen. Yeah, I think I'll roll with that. 75 angle, the twirl radius of 50. The twirl radius does not need to be animated, though. Just the angle needs to be animated on that twirl effect. All right, let's come over here to the second MOV clip. And what we'll do is we'll search for twirl. Well, let's come up here to the search bar. We'll search for twirl, drag this onto this second clip, and we will animate this guy from a -75. So we'll begin at -75. And here, I think I'm going to leave the twirl radius at 30. If you need to bump the twirl radius up a little bit, you can. But again, this will be something, once you've created the effect a couple times and you look at it, you'll know like, oh, I need to make it bigger or smaller or whatever. I'm going to set the playhead about right here. I'm going to activate the animation here for the angle parameter. I'm going to move down the clip here, and I'm just going to hit this reset parameter button to set my angle back to 0, therefore getting rid of that twirl. I'm going to select both of these keyframes. We'll right click. We'll ease these guys in as well. Set the keyframe or drag it to the very beginning of the clip and very end of the clip. And now what we've got is just this type of effect happening here, where we have this twist, but it still obviously does not look right on account of the fact that we have this crazy effect happening here at the beginning. But that's because we're about to add this kind of blurring zoom effect as well. And before we add that blurring zoom effect, we'll add a lens distortion also to the second clip. So we'll go Video Effects, Distort, Lens Distortion on the second clip. And in this case, we're going to animate the curvature from -70, right? That's what we set before, -70. And we'll toggle animation. And we will animate it back to just 0. So we just move over here and hit the reset parameter button, select both these keyframes, right click, let's ease these guys in, and then select them one at a time. Drag this guy to the beginning of the clip and this little one to the end of the clip. And what we'll have is an effect that's a bit more convincing, but we still have this problem of all of this stuff here. So how do we fix this? Well, what we need to do is drag out another adjustment layer, place it right above these clips. And again, if your adjustment layer is longer than the two clips lined up, just trim it by just dragging the edge of the adjustment layer. And once more, we will add a transform effect to this adjustment layer. So drag out transform, drop it on this adjustment layer. I'm going to hit my down arrow key. Well, I'll select the timeline out here. Hit the down arrow key to move right above the cut between my two bottom clips. And on that adjustment layer, once more, we're going to set our scale to 200. And we will drop a keyframe by toggling on the animation for the scaling parameter right there. Let's nudge 5 frames before this by holding down Shift and hitting the left arrow key. And we're going to set the scaling here to 300. And we will nudge now, holding down Shift, nudge to the right once. Well, make sure we select out here on the timeline, nudge to the right once, twice. So now we're 5 frames beyond that middle 200. And we're just going to choose to reset the parameter to bring the scaling back down to 100, right? Select these 3 keyframes and we'll ease these all in. Well, make sure you right click on a keyframe and go ease in. Great. And last but not least, we're just going to uncheck use composition shutter angle. And then we want a lot of blur. So we're going to go with like 360 on the shutter angle. And we can just come out here and just drag through the effect a little bit. And if it's not quite what we want, what the change that we might want to make here is just drag these keyframes out a little bit closer to the edge of our adjustment layer and see what that looks like. Just make sure that we're not getting anything crazy in our twisting effect, right? And now let's just set an in point. Let's set an out point over here. Let's render the in to out and preview this effect, and we'll check it out here in just a second. All right, and as we've done 5 times before now, or 4 times before, Option X, Alt X if you're on the PC. Let's preview this here. You can see we've got that cool effect. Now, it does feel like there's a little bit of hang up, and that probably has to do with the easing on the twist effect. So you could come in here and adjust the twist. You could adjust the angle. Maybe the angle needs to change a little bit. Maybe I should have really brought it all the way to 90 degrees. But you can really get it to the point where it's perfect. In fact, let's just try that real quick. I'm going to open up the twirl, and I'm going to drag that keyframe back. This is exactly how you would adjust this, by the way. Go to next keyframe, and I'm going to set the angle here to 90 degrees. And of course, I will drag this keyframe all the way to the end of this clip. But then we need to come over here to our second clip, and we need to adjust the twirl, the opening angle. Remember, because this angle only started at -75. So let's drag this keyframe back from the edge and set this to begin at -90, and then just drag that over. And let's just re-render this real quick. Set an in point, set an out point, go sequence, render in to out. We'll check this out here in just a second. All right, once more, we'll dispose of those in-out points. Let's preview this. Yeah, that actually looks a lot better, but I probably would still get rid of the easing because it still feels like there's a little bit of a sticky hang up there in the middle. But all things considered, you can really go and you can tweak and adjust those keyframes. You can tweak and adjust your easing however you like. The duration of the transition, you can obviously save the effects there on those video clips and the adjustment layer as a series of 3 different presets. So boom, you can quickly apply the transition as you're working through your own video project. So this tutorial went a little bit longer than I expected it to go. I thought it was going to be just 5 quick and easy transitions. They are still 5 relatively simple transitions, but you know what? We knocked them all out. We went through them all for creating these 5 amazing transitions in Adobe Premiere Pro for your video projects now and forever. That's it. Get it, got it, good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more great tutorials every day. Also, buy my course. It helps us do what we do, and this channel is supported by viewers just like you. You can also just click the thumbnail and watch another video from this channel. See you next time, guys.